Good morning. There's a famous quote that says, "A ship in the harbor is safe, but that's not why ships are built." In this week's Torah portion, it talks about various sacrifices. That if a person commits this sin or that sin, they bring various forms of atonement. And the Torah says, if the individual sins, if the nation sins, if the high priest sins. But then when it talks about the king, instead of saying, if the king will sin, he must bring an atonement, because in Judaism, no one is above the law. Even the king must atone publicly for their sins. But when it comes to the king, the ultimate ruler and leader, it doesn't say if, but it says asher, when the king will sin. And our rabbis ask, if by an individual or by a high priest or the Sanhedrin, the high court, it says if, why by the king does it say when? And our rabbis give us a very profound answer, and they say that when it comes to the ultimate ruler, the king, it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. Because as the famous saying goes, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And therefore it's inevitable that the king is going to make a mistake, he's going to commit a sin, and therefore the question is not if he will be bringing atonement, but when he will bring an atonement. And our rabbis say the word asher could also mean fortunate. Fortunate is the generation who has a king who could recognize, admit, and ask for forgiveness for his mistakes and his sins. And here we have a very powerful lesson in life. Leadership, the price of leadership is sin. Because the more you do, the more you undertake, the more of a role and a responsibility you carry, the more likely you're going to make mistakes. But that should never inhibit you from taking on leadership positions. Because as they say, that no good deed goes unpunished, meaning I'll do something good and then I'm going to make a mistake and everyone's going to blame me. But the more mistakes you make, that means the more you're active and involved and attempting to do something positive. If you never get married, you'll never make a mistake in your marriage because you won't be married. If you never have children, you'll never make a parenting mistake. Is that the solution? No. Get married, have children, and you will make mistakes in marriage. You will make mistakes in raising your kids. But that means you worked and attempted and achieved and succeeded. And as I think it was Michael Jordan who said something about the shots, I miss 100% of the shots I don't take. If you don't take the shot, if you don't go out of your comfort zone, then of course you're going to miss. Meaning to say, in life, it's not the things we made mistakes in that we regret most. It's those things we didn't attempt to do in the first place because we were afraid that we make a mistake. And, you know, it's fascinating at a wedding. The last thing the groom does is breaks the glass and everyone says, Mazel Tov. And today there's a custom many have to take the broken shards and make a mezuzah case out of it, or Shabbos candlesticks. And the question is, why is this the end of the ceremony? And why would you take the broken pieces and hang it up as a mezuzah or as a Shabbos candlesticks? And it's not just to remember the ceremony, because you could have taken something else from the ceremony. There's a very powerful lesson. When was the last time someone broke something in the house and everyone said Mazel Tov? And it doesn't just mean physical breaking something, it can mean metaphorically breaking something. And therefore the Mazel Tov under the chuppah reminds the bride and the groom that in marriage there will be mistakes made. In the home there will be mistakes made. But don't get angry over it. Say Mazel Tov. Why say Mazel Tov? Because realize that you're married to a human being and human beings make mistakes. And therefore, if someone made a mistake, it means that at least they were trying. They were doing something positive. And therefore, celebrate the fact that you're not married to an angel, but you're married to a human being like yourself, and mistakes will be made. You know, a very popular item today that you can find almost in every office is Post-it notes, where you write a little note and you post it. And the story behind Post-it notes is that there was a chemist in a lab trying to make a glue, an adhesive. And when he made the adhesive, it came out very weak. And he said to himself, I failed. I didn't make the strong adhesive bond I wanted to make. But then he said to himself, okay, what could this weak adhesive glue be used for? And he came up with the idea of post-it notes, where you could just stick something up temporarily and with a weak adhesive pull it off easily. And today this is a household office item that every single home and every single office contains. How did he do it? Because he looked at the mistake and said, what positive outcome can I create from the mistakes we make? Let us not be afraid to make mistakes. The worst thing is to be afraid to take action and do something. And if you make a mistake, Mazel Tov, you're a human being. All it means was that you were trying. Have a wonderful day.